Welcome and thank you for standing by. Parties will be on a listen-only mode for the duration of today's call. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would like to turn the call over to Deb Riviera with the Census Bureau. Thank you. You may begin.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon and welcome, everyone. We are so pleased to have you joining us today for this Updates to Data.Census.gov webinar event, where we will showcase a number of enhancements, features, and defect resolutions that have been made to the Census Bureau's main data platform. Our session today will be quite brief, so we will get started here in just a minute. But first, as a reminder, the chat feature is up and running today. My colleagues and I will be using it to send helpful links and also field as many questions as we can during the next 30 minutes. We will also have a quick question and answer session at the end of the webinar event, where we will be selecting some questions from the chat and reading them out loud to our presenter. To submit your questions, please be sure to select the All Panelists option from the drop-down menu, and this way all of our panelists can see your question. And please make sure that you do not include personal or sensitive information along with your question. Also note that the question and answer session today will focus mainly on the platform, data.census.gov, and we will not be able to go in depth to address questions related to the 2020 census products or data. The slide deck and the recording of today's webinar will be posted on the Census Academy site, so please keep an eye out for that link in the chat as well. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, and now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Tyson Weister. Thank you, Tyson.
Great. Thank you, Deb. And thank you all so much for tuning in this afternoon for our webinar, Data.Census.gov Update. My name is Tyson Weister, and I work on the communications team for Data.Census.gov. Diving right into the content, what we have planned is really to focus on the latest updates that we pushed to the site in July and August. We're going to walk through those on screen very briefly, and then I'm going to pull out some of the highlights and show them to you on the live site so you can see them even more clearly, and then we'll open up for questions at the end in terms of the ones that Deb has pulled from the chat. All of the enhancements that we do on data.census.gov is driven by user feedback, so we just wanted to take a brief moment to thank everyone that has submitted feedback to us on how we can make the site work better. This just shows on a high level that we collect your feedback on an ongoing basis, and we take a look at it, prioritize, and incorporate some of those solutions and develop solutions in our environments. We do some testing internally before we release those solutions to the public, and then they finally get released. So thank you all so much for those of you who have submitted feedback. Based on the feedback that we received over the last couple of months, we were able to push out some enhancements to address those items. Shown here on screen, a lot of work were done for new and expanded profiles. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. We also released a new header, more options for large tables, some enhanced mapping capabilities, microdata application programming interface or API on the API discovery tool, and some fixes to defects. The items here in the bulleted list that are shown in bold are things that we will also view on the live site. So let's take a look at each one of these individually. Starting with profiles, one of the things that we released are new industry profiles. So this means that for any 2-digit to 6-digit NAICS industry code, you are now able to access a profile with a collection of key statistics, visualizations, and more for this particular industry. These profiles are available at the national and state level, and we'll take a look at this in more detail in just a moment. We also expanded the existing geography profiles. So when you go to the geography profile now, what you'll notice is that there's about twice as much content in these profiles as there were before. This additional content includes new featured estimates that you'll see at the top of the page highlighted here in this screenshot as an example. And then underneath of that, In this screenshot, it shows a visualization for age and sex. There are about 45 of those visualizations in the profiles now. That includes 23 new ones. So what you're getting is a lot more key information all in one place. You just have to scroll through it. Some other updates in regards to the profiles with this release is that we realigned the categories and subcategories to match the way that they appear in the topics filters in the advanced search. So this just means that the layout of those items on the left-hand side of the profile will match in terms of the wording and the order that they appear in the topics profile, just allowing a consistent experience for you across the site. We also did some technical improvements so that the source data for these profiles draw from the same place. And this just means that in the future, it will be easier for us to push out updates to you faster as new data are released. A couple other updates with the profiles. One of the things you'll notice is that each map or visualization has a View Options button in the upper right. So this is a new button. It has all of the action items for a particular visualization. So when you click the View Options button, you'll be able to access those action items. One of the new action items is the ability to view table. In this case, we're looking at a screenshot for Asian alone across all counties in Texas, and it would show you the source data in a table format that is powering the map you're seeing on screen. We'll take a look at these in more detail on the live site. And just as a note, as you're working through the geography profile and the industry profile, we are still working to address a few instances of inconsistencies in this message that you see on screen that says content is currently unavailable. So what this means, you could be getting this message for one of two reasons. Either the data are not truly available, or maybe were never released or were suppressed for that particular combination of topic in geography or industry code in geography that you selected, and there's actually nothing to display for that particular source statement. There are a few instances where we need to work on our code and some technical improvements in the back end when you should be getting data but aren't, but by and large what you'll see is with these profiles you'll be getting data, and we're working to address a few of these instances. Another feature with the release is improved headers. So what you'll notice is in the upper right there are new links to the advanced search, microdata, help, FAQ, and feedback. These links follow you across the site and make certain parts of the site in terms of navigating to them just one click away, and it also puts you one click away from many of our educational resources. We also released a new option for large tables. When I say large table, what we mean is any table that has more than 1,000 columns, 2.5 million table cells, or an uncompressed download size of 4 megabytes or more. You'll know that you're looking at a large table when you go to access the table for usually a collection of geographies, and then you see the message that you see on the right-hand side of my screen here. Nothing terribly new with the message itself at the beginning. What is new with the release is an additional option to try to proceed with opening these large tables anyways. So the message just lets you know if you proceed with opening the table on screen, it may result in browser instability, your browser may freeze, you may get an error message, or it may actually open up. We're going to take a look at this on the live site. And finally, we had some mapping enhancements. One of the enhancements is the new feature to see color-based maps. So this gives you color-coded features on your map for parks, hospitals, colleges, airports, and military installations. You can access this new color-based map by clicking the base map button at the top of the table and then choose Street Map. And we also improved our maps in terms of including thinner lines to separate boundaries for certain types of geographic areas. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see an example of metropolitan and micropolitan statistical areas across the United States that have not been selected yet. Those were the same lines, those thick green lines that existed in the past across all instances of maps for this particular geographic area. With this update from the release, when you select certain types of areas that have these thicker outlines, and then you go to actually map data, here on this screen we're showing median household income across those metro areas in the western United States, it will change lines for those selected areas to thin gray lines, and it just helps you make a nicer map, and you're able to actually make sense of the data and see differences between the geographies instead of a bunch of thick green lines. And we also released the Microdata Application Programming Interface, or API, in the API Discovery tool. So what this means for those of you that are using the API, when you go to the Discovery tool, you'll see the dataset type column, which has always been there. And with the release, you'll notice that some datasets, as you can see at the bottom of the screenshot here, will say the dataset type is microdata. We released about 60 different types of datasets in the microdata category with this initial release. And to go hand in hand, we of course provide a new Microdata API user guide. You can visit it at the link on the right-hand side of this slide that walks you through how to go about accessing microdata in the API through a step-by-step process. So just as a note, if you're not familiar with what microdata is, it's where we take responses received from our surveys, we remove information so you can't identify any particular person or household, and put additional edits to protect the confidentiality of our respondents. And then we really give you that set of anonymized data for you to conduct your own custom analysis. By and large, with this being released for the first time on the API Discovery tool, most users that have been using microdata in the past would continue to find it easier to access microdata through the ways that they know and love, like microdata access on data.census.gov/MDAT, or by downloading the files through the FTP sites and using their own statistical software. But if you're a software developer, you may be interested in building a mobile or web application that is powered by microdata, and you would be able to access this information through microdata access in the API Discovery tool. And of course, we always, with our releases, fix defects on the site. With this release, we resolved 65 defects. I've marked some of the highlighted items on screen. And if you'd like more information, I've included a link at the bottom of this slide where you can read up a little bit more on these defects and have a little bit more time to spend with them if you're interested in learning what is fixed. But we wanted to devote more time today to showing you a live demonstration of some of these new features since we released a lot of new things. So let's go ahead and transition here over to the live demonstration. For this demo, I'm going to show 4 different items, and we're going to start with the profile. So the first thing I want to show you is the expanded geography profiles. And for this example, we're going to look at the geography profile for Harris County, Texas. Navigating to the live site, we always recommend using Google Chrome, and it's data.census.gov. One way that you can go about accessing the profiles is to simply type the geography into the single search bar and press enter. So I type Harris County, Texas. Depending on your zoom level, you may need to zoom out, but anytime you select a single geography, you'll be able to see on the right-hand side this blue box that says Explore Data, Harris County, Texas profile. So I'm going to click that blue box to navigate me to the geography profile. So far, nothing's changed with what I'm showing you on how you navigate to the profile. And once you get to the profile page, you'll see it has a map of the geography at the top, just like before. You will start to notice here, again, some of those additional key estimates that are provided here right at your convenience, such as percent without health care coverage. And then as you scroll down, you'll continue to see high-level information on the left, median age for Harris County, Texas, compared to median age for Texas, and then more detailed information shown on the right-hand side with these easy-to-digest visualizations. So you can continue to scroll through this profile. It covers a lot of topics: language spoken at home, native and foreign born. I'm going to click over to race and ethnicity on the left-hand side. This is an example of a section that we expanded out. So now with the new geography profile, you'll see a separate section for each different race and ethnic group. Here we're looking at the beginning for American Indian and Alaska Native alone in Harris County, Texas, and then a map of that particular metric across all counties in Texas. You can scroll down to Asian as another example and continue to work your way through the list. At this point, though, I think you all can see very clearly there's a lot of information you can go about exploring in these profiles. It's a really great way to get started with census data, to get a high-level look at a geography, or if you're just feeling overwhelmed with all of the table options that are available to you, definitely recommend checking out the profile for the high-level information. We also talked about the new View Options button in the upper right. Here I'm going to click that for this Asian alone for all counties within Texas and show you the new View Table action item. So this is an action item available for map in this particular geography profile. And when I click that, I get the total population percent across all counties in Texas. That is Asian, and it's the same data that's powering the map that we just saw. Moving on to show you our next example, we wanted to take a moment to look at these industry profiles. These are brand new profiles that we just released on the site. And for this example, I'm going to look at the industry profile for breweries, which is NAICS code 312120 in Oregon. So navigating to the site, the geography profile I just showed are available down to the city and town level. I'm going to click the U.S. Census logo in the upper left. The industry profiles go down to the state level. So I'm going to type in 312120. You could also try a keyword like breweries to get to these industry profiles, but anytime that you do know the NAICS code, it's going to be the most direct way to go about getting to these profiles. And then you'll go ahead and type in a state if you want this data at the state level, or simply omit that in your search if you'd rather get the data for the United States. Once we have our NAICS code and possibly our geography, we'll press enter. And then you'll notice the navigation pathway to the industry profile, very similar to how you get to the geography profile. You'll look for the blue box on the right-hand side. In this case, it has the NAICS code, and it says breweries profile. We'll click the blue box. It takes us and gives us a map showing that we requested this information for the state of Oregon. At the top, it has some high-level information about what is included in the brewery industry for this particular NAICS code. Scrolling down a bit, we can see a high-level statistic right at the top showing us that there were 137 breweries in Oregon that have employees. And then scrolling down through the profile, you'll see more information, sometimes that high-level information on the left and more detailed information on the right-hand side. Again, we're still working on a few instances of this error message when you shouldn't be getting content not available, but it is possible you could be getting these messages because the data simply weren't released and we've requested too detailed of information. In those cases, you may want to check out some of the underlying data tables as an alternative way to see what information is available, or you could always consider using a higher level geography or a higher level NAICS code. Moving on to our third example to show you new options for large tables. Here we're going to show how to view a table from the ACS on total population for all counties in the United States. And I already have in a second tab on the live site a search pulled up for a particular table ID for all counties in the U.S. The purpose of this isn't really to show you how to navigate to that table, but just to show you that when you get this message that the table is too large to display, you really want to hit home. There's a new option for you to try to open the table in your web browser anyways. You can, of course, download the data as you've always been able to in the past. I'm going to click the new option, Open the Table. You do risk, of course, experiencing browser instability or long load times as you do this. In some cases, it will pop up relatively quickly. So we're now leaving that decision up to you as a user if you want to proceed with trying to open these large tables or just go ahead and download the data without having to worry about any of those inconsistencies. So just another option for you to consider as you work through the site. And going back to close out with our final example, color base maps. Here I'm going to show how you can explore census tracts in Washington, D.C. using the new color base map option. Back to the live site, we'll start fresh, click the U.S. Census logo, and here I'm going to drill right into the map to show you the new color base map. We'll click the selection map on the left-hand side. And what you'll notice here is the new option that says Base Map at the top of your map. And once you click that button, you'll see a street map. You'll know this is the color map because the thumbnail for it also shows the map in color. So here we'll click Street Map. We can already see we're getting some results in color-coded information on our screen. At this point, I'm going to zoom in to Washington, D.C., and take a closer look at some of the information that we can get from this map. And right now, we're showing data at the state level, but I'm going to click into the Geographies drop-down menu and change it to Census Tract just to show you a little more clearly how this new color map may be helpful for you. So changing from state to census tract, I know once I make that selection, I'm going to see census tract boundaries on the map I'm viewing. So with this color code information, I can see, as an example, Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport is highlighted here in gray. Looking over to the right, I can see St. Elizabeth's Hospital in pink. I can see some different parks in green, colleges and universities in kind of a yellow-orange color. And then in this light pink color, we can also see military installations. In this case, you can see Bolling Air Force Base. So let's say I wanted to access some of the demographic data for people that live in Bolling Air Force Base. Since I have this nice color-coded reference and I've chosen the census tract level, I could go ahead if I wanted to and click on that tract, then choose Select. And seeing that the census tract 73.01 contained Bolling Air Force Base, now that I selected that tract, I could go ahead and click Tables at the top of my screen and then start looking at some of the demographic information for this particular area. So the color-coded just helps you orient yourself on the map to make better sense of what you're looking at. As we look ahead, we are working towards new updates that will give some navigation improvements to the filtering experience, and more options for you to select collections of geographies in a single click. All of the updates we do are driven by user feedback. You can access the email address to tell us how we can make the site work better for you by clicking the feedback button in the upper right. And as a note, we are in the process of transitioning to a new email address, census.data@census.gov. Now, both cedsci.feedback and census.data@census.gov will come to the same team, and they both work as we're working through the transition process, so feel free to use either one. but we are transitioning to the census.data just for more clarity purposes as to what that email address does. You can send data requests or feedback on how to make the site work better for you. And it's just easier to remember and say. And as a final note, when you visit the link on the left-hand side of this page, we also would like to invite you to sign up for data.census.gov email updates, and then you will be able to get our newsletter that we send out each month with the latest system updates, data releases, and educational opportunities sent right to your email box. And at this time, we'll go ahead and transition over to Deb.
Thank you very much, Tyson. Okay, so in just a few moments, we will begin our question and answer session. But first, I would like to invite you all to share your thoughts about today's webinar through an evaluation survey. Your feedback helps us design future training sessions, and it lets us know how we can improve our webinars. The link to the evaluation survey is in the chat box right now, and it will also appear as a pop-up when you exit the WebEx event. We do read all of the comments that are submitted, and we very much look forward to reading your thoughts about today's session. Now, if you have questions remaining after our session concludes, please feel free to reach out to one of the 2 email inboxes listed here. If you are a member of the public, please reach out to the Center for Enterprise Dissemination, and for members of the media, you may contact the Public Information Office. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has submitted questions so far. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Our first question is, are data files that are accessed through the MDAT tool anonymized, or are they original unmodified data?
Thank you for the question. Those are definitely anonymized, so they will not contain any information that would allow you to be able to identify any particular person or household. If you'd like more information, I'd recommend checking into some of the technical documentation on census.gov website for different data sets, and you can also email us if you'd like more information, but they are definitely protected to prevent anyone from being able to identify a particular person or household based on those data.
Great, thank you, Tyson. Our next question is, are geography profiles available at the MSA Metropolitan Statistical Area level?
Those geography profiles are not currently available for MSAs. That would be a great example of feedback that we like to hear and have submitted to census.data@census.gov.
Excellent. Okay, and we did receive this question from multiple users. Would you be able to show us a good way to find a NAICS code or where to find information related to NAICS codes?
The one thing that I will say, I'm going to go ahead and show here on the live site 2 resources you can use right on data.census.gov. One is you can go ahead and try to type in a keyword. So I had mentioned you can try to type in something like breweries, and you'll notice it presents some options in the type ahead right here for you. You could go ahead and run the search as well and see what it gives you a match for. In this case, it's matched to NAICS 312120. Another way you can explore NAICS codes besides searching a keyword is to go to the advanced search. And this is really where you can look at the entirety of NAICS codes. So under the filters on the left where it says codes, industry codes, NAICS, you'll be able to drill into all of the available options. So you can see here as some examples, it gives you the first 2 digits of the codes. And as you click into each of these options, anytime you don't see a checkbox, it tells you when you make a selection, you're going to see more detailed options on the right. So when I choose, as an example, we were working with the one for brewery. So I'm going to go ahead and choose 3.1 through 3.3. And then I can see the 3-digit options, and continue to explore down into the more granular level detail. I'd recommend checking out these 2 as starting points, and if you have additional questions and you want to email us, we could follow up with any additional resources for you.
Great. Thank you, Tyson. We have 2 more questions here. The next one is data downloadable as shapefiles for use in GIS applications?
Great. Thank you for that question. I'm going to go ahead and take this as an opportunity to show really quickly all of the resources that we have in the help section. So that's a great place to look for your question, or you can click here on FAQ. And really I want to highlight an FAQ, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on that one. But these are just some of the ways that we're trying to make getting answers to your questions and educational resources more readily available. So the short answer to your question is that we do not have this on data.census.gov, but you can access this information through the geography resources that we have through the geography division. The FAQ that we have here, which I can also drop in the chat, where can I download shapefiles, it will go over this in a little bit more detail, and it shows you the step-by-step process on how you could download these shapefiles separately from the geography. So if you were having trouble locating where these shapefiles are, that would be the answer to your question. And then if it's just feedback that you would like this functionality directly on data.census.gov, that would be a great example of something to submit to census.data@census.gov.
Thank you, Tyson. And our last question for today is, are there any plans to release more detailed geographies for the business profiles?
That's a great question. I'm not able to speak to any future plans. I don't know the answer offhand if the final plan was to only go to the state level or if there were plans in the future to consider more detailed geographies. But thank you for the question. If you wanted to send it to us, we'd be happy to look into it further and shed some light if we have any insight of what's maybe coming in the future for that, or if we would be able to take that down as feedback for consideration as a possible future enhancement.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, that is all the time we have for questions for today, but if we were not able to address your question, please feel free to send us an email at census.gov or our other email address, cedsci.feedback@census.gov. Now I'll go ahead and hand it back to you, Tyson.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you all for your questions. I just wanted to close out with 2 additional resources where you can learn more. One is by clicking the Help button on the landing page of data.census.gov. It takes you to a variety of educational materials. You saw some of the answers to FAQs in the question and answer session, but we also have more information for recorded webinars on a variety of topics, video tutorials, PDFs with screenshots and step-by-step instructions, and more. And as we continue to have major upcoming data releases, you can know that we will continue to add more educational resources here, including how-to materials for the 2020 census. And finally, wanting to put a plug in for your local data dissemination specialists. So these are the team that hosts census.gov/academy. They cover training across the Census Bureau, so not necessarily just related to data.census.gov, but they cover a variety of tools, and they cut across different surveys and programs. So any training need, you should be able to find some helpful information on census.gov/academy. We also have data dissemination specialists located throughout the country, and there is one that is assigned to your state. So if you'd like to request a training for your local organization, recommend taking advantage of the contact information in the bottom right of this slide. These training requests are provided free of charge, so feel free to reach out if you have any additional training needs. And thank you all again so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you all in a future webinar.
That concludes today's conference. Thank you for participating. You may disconnect at this time.